So Marty, can you tell us a little bit about your viola? It sounds like you have it with you today. Can you show our audience what kind of makes it unique for a Baroque instrument?
Sure, here's my viola, and it was made in about 1738, sort of a mid-18th century instrument. I'm very lucky to have this viola. I recently got it completely refurbished.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I hadn't had time before the pandemic to send it to anybody. So I had someone really look it over and make some repairs that I not long needed. It has a lot of very old cracks that someone took the top off and he cleated them to make them really solid. Yeah, so you will notice that we play with no chin rest, and the bridge is hard to see, but the bridge is a little bit different looking in the way it's cut than a modern bridge. A lot of what's different is on the inside, and that's also what I got refurbished recently. There's a bar here called a bass bar, and in a modern instrument, it's much thicker. And so I had the violin maker shave it down to more of a Baroque size. The other big thing he did for me was this had a modern neck on it before with a modern neck angle. And even though I had the right bridge and the right tailpiece and was playing with the right strings, I hadn't had the neck redone. So this is what he did. This angle is very different on this fingerboard. You can see this little notch here maybe.
Yeah.
And that is very different from a modern. This angle is completely different now, and the neck is set in a different way. And that's a big difference in Baroque instruments from modern instruments, is that neck angle. And it really opens up the instrument and makes it very resonant and kind of brought it back to its old life. So everything else, as you see about the instrument, looks like other modern instruments. I always tell people it's because when the violin and viola came into existence in about 1540, that they were perfect just like they were. So some of the changes that came about were just to project to a bigger, more modern concert hall.
Yeah, definitely. And it's amazing that, I think you're absolutely correct that we have few instances in history where, you got it right, the guts of it right, towards the beginning, and then just tweak things as we go. So could you show our audience a little bit the differences of playing versus a modern instrument? What are maybe a handful of things that early music specialists really think about when they play that a modern player might not necessarily think about in the way you approach things?
Well, a lot of what we think about has to do with the bow, and I'll show you my bow as well, because this is my little short bow.
Yeah,
it really sounds good on my viola for early French stuff, especially Lully and early Italian stuff. The bow is quite different from the modern bow. The tip is much lighter, and the bow overall is much lighter. When people have picked this up, they've remarked how light it feels. And the bow is our voice on our string instruments. And so we use our voices quite differently. If I were to play, and I don't have a modern bow actually, I've been playing Baroque instruments for 30 years and I don't even have a good modern bow. If I were to play, let's say, I'll just kind of show you with, let's say we had 4 quarter notes in a bar, for example. Modern violists might be encouraged to play it with the bow really on the string and very glued to the string, and very, a lot of my modern study on violin and viola was geared towards keeping that continuous sound. And that's a beautiful sound in its own way. But if I saw, as a Baroque player, a bar of 4 quarter notes, I would think about a hierarchy in those quarter notes of the first beat being the strongest, the second beat being less strong, the third beat being strong but not as strong as the first, and the last note being the least. So I would be playing more like, and there'd be more lift between. And we also think in terms of gestures a lot. The bow, this kind of gesture where I'm playing two notes, but it's a down up, and the second part of that gesture is lighter than the first part. That's a very oversimplified explanation. There's a lot of nuance with that, but we are looking for ways for the bow to not only stay in the string, but to come out of the string and to dance out of the string.
Yeah, I think that is a big difference. So I'm curious of how, so in modern music, you might hear conductors or leaders say, I want that on the string or off the string a lot.
Yes. Yes.
And that maybe that language is not as in the Baroque world as is in the modern. And so
we are more,
yeah.
I think in the Baroque world, we think more about articulating like text. Like you as a conductor, I know, will ask us for certain text or words, and you'll be asking the singers to speak the text in a certain way. And early Baroque instrumentalists are trying to speak that text in the same way as the singers are. If I hear root vol, I want to be playing that with my bow, the same way the singers are singing it.
Exactly, and so much of the music you play has that vocal inflection to it, and also a lot of dance mediums that come into play as well. What if you in an early music specialist career, do you tell us kind of the types of music you play most? So we talked about that you're obviously playing with singers and stuff. What are some of the other types of ensembles that you play with in historical movement kind of stuff?
Well, it's really great because we have a lot of tools available to us and a lot of colors in our paint box available to us, because I could be playing, one weekend I could be playing high Baroque music, I could be playing a Messiah with Spire, or I could be playing a Bach, B minor mass with Spire. But on another weekend I could be playing with this sackbut ensemble I play with, and we're playing 16th century music, or we're back to playing Gabrielli, and I'm playing on my violin and using even different techniques to do that. So at different pitches, I could be playing at 415 one weekend and then 465 the following weekend. So
yeah, I think our audience would be interested to know that the Baroque period was actually a long time. So it spans quite a while, and we in music history we learn these dates of when the Baroque history started and when it ended. But that it's like anything in culture and history, it doesn't immediately happen. You don't just immediately say we're in the Baroque. There was development time to it, and then time after it. So I think it's really, you make an excellent point that there's a lot of variety even within what specialists would call the Baroque period.
And we're always looking sort of around the corner, maybe back around the corner rather than forward around the corner. There's some 17th century composers, for example, that are Baroque composers that write for the violin. You can tell they were almost coming more out of the Renaissance. It's more Renaissance style, even though they're Baroque, and you can tell that they're still possessing a lot of those Renaissance characteristics. So it's helpful for us to sort of know all of these different histories. And it's very mainstream now also. Your audience would be interested in knowing, for many modern players to be very versed in all of this, and especially in classical periods. Some orchestras are starting to play, Brahms and Beethoven with gut strings to see how the instruments would have been playing at that time. And
yeah, I think that's super interesting that, and that seems to be really a development in recent years, playing what you mentioned, some of those later things. And I think, would this a statement that you agreed with, that the instruments didn't change overnight either. So it was a gradual change. So I think there's definitely precedence to try some of those later things. I think it gives it a totally different sound. I know Spire has done a few kind of high classical pieces over the years and on gut strings, and that certainly gives a different plus. I'd love to try some even later stuff, a Mendelssohn Elijah or something one of these
Oh,
days.
yes. Yeah, that would be exciting.
So
Great.
yeah,
And
great.
that's why we're all in possession of all these different bows. Like this
Oh,
is one
yeah.
of my early bows, but I have several different bows all the way up to what is called a transitional bow,
Mhm.
something that would have been the first right before the modern bow. And we kind of use all these different tools at our disposal all the time too.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit about, you've been with Spire for now many years. So can you tell some of your favorite memories of Kansas City and of Spire and the project and our colleagues? Just share some kind of behind the scenes look at what makes kind of our community tick.
Well, the community is very warm and caring and nurturing and loving, and I've always been very grateful for that. And I've always felt very warmly welcomed in Kansas City, and I've been really thrilled to have excellent hosts like your parents and your in-laws and a couple of other people. And some fond memories I have of our going down to the plaza and seeing what that was all about and learning about the history of Kansas City. Usually the musicians, we love to go out for some barbecue, and
Yes.
that's one of our favorite things to do. Yes, I've loved Kansas City, and I've thought that it was so great that it was such a community that could be so supportive of so much music. And yeah, I think we just inspire. It's a family, and I feel like, Ben, you have really cultivated that. There's an atmosphere of respect and of taking care of the musicians. I've admired, we've had instances where a bunch of people got sick on a project. And Spire has done such an amazing job of taking people to urgent care or, things like that. It just makes you feel respected and part of a real family. I also love that the people I stay with always come to the concerts, and it's fun to feel like you have friends in the audience. That's one of the things I've actually been missing on quarantine, is I've been missing my host families in the various cities where I play are my friends now, and I miss seeing them. So I look forward to when I can see
you
them
make
again.
such an excellent point of that. Not all our musicians are local, but we, by doing this project base, seeing many of the same musicians over and over again, we have created this family, this group of people that have a shared purpose, a shared common goal. And I think our audiences for now, 10 years almost, can resonate with that. And I think that energy, that whether it's spiritual, whether it's ecstatic, whether it's warm, fuzzy feelings, I think one of the successes is this community that has come together to share this music. And I think it's something that our audience feels immediately every time, from the first note of whatever we're playing. I think they feel that, because I know that they comment all the time. You can just tell that the musicians are looking at each other and just having the time of their life, working really hard, but you can tell that they absolutely love and are convicted about this music, and they're sharing it with us, and it really creates a transformational experience.
It does, and I will say, as an artist, it affects the music in a very big way. If the atmosphere is not like that, you can hear it in the music making, and the audience can tell. And the other thing I love about Spire is that our audience is a part of the performance. For me, we are not. I want audiences to always know this, that we're really nothing without them. Their energy makes is part of the whole performance. They are part of the whole experience. They're not just sitting there, not part of it. It affects how we play to have them there.
That I'm so grateful that you said that. I know that our audience appreciates that, and we're very grateful to those folks for being loyal for for many years, and being a part of our journey. And after the COVID pandemic, when we are all back together, it's going to be that much more special to share this music with our community. Well, Martie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We're so fascinated by you and your instrument and the history of your life, and I know our audience members will look forward to seeing you as soon as we can be live and share our music together. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Ben, and stay well, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.